They call it the innovator's dilemma, right? We could have sat there and kept doing what we were doing, but it's one of the things that I've always really prided Zeta on. We pivot the business all the time. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but we're pivoting again massively, probably the biggest pivot we've made as a company since 2017 with Athena, which is our new voice-enabled conversational super agent, which is a massive pivot, moving away from a keyboard and platform navigation to conversational management of outcomes.
Hi everybody, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining the Boardroom Club today for another episode. So today we are fortunate enough to interview none other than David Steinberg, co-founder and CEO of Zeta Global, the global AI marketing powerhouse that revolutionizing how businesses use AI and data to understand, engage, and grow customers' relationships. So David, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yossi, it is so nice of you to have me.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. So, David, before we going deeper into Zeta Global, I want to start with a very relevant subject today, Tokenmaxxing, right? Do you think that the industry is optimizing for the right thing, meaning cost per token, or should it actually optimize for something else? Say decision quality per token, and you could take it however you want. So,
The answer to both your questions is yes, right? Let me give you the good side of token maxing, and I'll give you sort of the bad side of token maxing. So organizations continue to struggle with getting AI adoption from employees that are worried about disintermediating. By gamifying it, they're actually getting to an adoption rate. The problem is they're getting to an adoption rate around the wrong metrics. Just using tokens for token's sake is not helpful. And as it relates to token utilization, token cost, or what I would call productivity, which is your question around, are you choosing the right algorithm? At Zeta, we built a new platform called Spade. And Spade is an internal automated workflow management tool that our programmers go into Spade and they say, this is the type of code that they want to write. Spade automatically chooses the best LLM for creating that code. So if it's security based, it might choose Claude. If it's general coding, it might choose GPT. If it's publishing based coding, it might be Gemini, could use Cursor, so on and so forth. It then, if all things are equal, meaning it believes two algorithms can create the highest quality code the fastest, it automatically chooses the one that consumes the least tokens. So you want to first and foremost choose the right algorithm. So once the code is generated by that algorithm, it then goes to another internal program we have called Zippy. And Zippy does all of the QA. It QAs all the code. Then it goes to an architect. The architect can read it, push one button, and it goes generally available. So at Zeta, not only are we one of the top sellers of AI, we're one of the biggest consumers of AI in that 75% of all of our new code in the first quarter of 2026 was automatically generated through Spade. 75%. I think we're ahead
wow.
of Google as a percentage. But to your very intuitive question, it never tries to token max. It's actually trying to token minimum with the caveat. If an algorithm consumes more tokens, but that algorithm is better suited to write that piece of code, Spade will still choose that algorithm because quality will ultimately trump the quantity, so to speak.
And I guess easier said than done because, okay, now it's AI, but you actually started a company as a sort of like marketing focus on email consolidation in a way. But can you take us back to 2017? I know there was like a big strategic inflection point there.
Yeah.
And what led you to transform the company to sort of like this new AI first data cloud? And what triggered this decision at the end?
We were a marketing company and primarily used email. And then we had pivoted from an acquisition company into what we called a customer lifecycle marketing platform, where we started buying CRM platforms and consolidating customer acquisition into the same platform as customer retention and monetization. The reason that's important to remember, was going into 2017, we had put together, call it 8 different platforms. They were very disparate. They were pretty siloed at the time. And I was trying to solve a problem for a client. So I went down to our analytics team. We were at 34th and Madison in New York City at the time. We were on 5 different floors because we kept growing and, we couldn't get contiguous space. So every meeting involved an elevator. So I went down and got to the analytics guys, and I was trying to solve a problem for a client. I said, I need this report to do so. And they said, great. Went back upstairs. 2 hours later, I was like, where's my report? So I went back downstairs and I said, guys, where's the report? They said, oh, yeah. We compiled the raw data into a meta format. We sent it over to our operation in India, and they should have that report for us by next week at the latest. I said, guys, I need this report in like 15 minutes. And what we figured out was even in 2016, going into 2017, we were trying to process billions of marketing signals to make a very good decision. No technology that we had at the time could synthesize that type of data fast enough. And that's when I started reading about artificial intelligence. And, at the time, it really was very complex machine learning focused on natural language processing, right? And it's evolved, obviously, greatly from there. But at the time, we were sort of at a crossroads because when John Sculley and I founded the company in 2007, the vision was to do everything a marketer needed in one user interface with one reporting infrastructure. And even though we had all of these CRM assets, all of these customer acquisition assets, we had, a big data repository, data warehouse at the time, nothing was talking, and it wasn't getting to the efficiency levels that we felt were necessary for winning in the marketplace. So researching AI, got to know the Boom Train guys, which at the time was a super hot natural language processing AI company in San Francisco. Chris Momberg, their co-founder, and Neej Gore are actually still our CTO and chief data officer today. We made the decision to buy that company and then discussed DISQUS, which is the world's largest commenting platform. My friend Fred Wilson, who runs Union Square Ventures, called me and said, you should look at this company in our portfolio. And I sort of went into this now, what's a famous board meeting for us internally, where I had to go into our private equity backers and say, listen, we're going to take everything we've done over the last 10 years. We're going to sunset it, but run it for cash flow. We're going to go from making, pick a number, 50, 60, 70 million a year in EBITDA to zero for the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah, exactly. Because we're going to build this entirely new platform that's going to be able to put artificial intelligence and data as native to the application layer. So it's foundational to the platform. Now, remember at the time, the closest thing to AI for most companies was like Skynet. Nobody knew which was out of the Terminator, but it was science fiction. So now in the middle of the board meeting, there's a lot of back and forth. It's actually the first board meeting I've run in 20 years that was not a unanimous vote, but we sort of had to make the decision, could we afford to buy Boom Train or could we afford to buy Discuss? Did you want to control the AI layer, but then use third-party data? Did you want to control the data layer and use third-party AI? Halfway through the meeting, I was so agitated with some of our board members that I said, we're going to buy both of them. So we came out of this. I then had to retrade both deals because we didn't have enough money to do it. We converted a lot of it into stock, which honestly worked out very well for them. And we ended up buying Boom Train and Discuss, both of which were in San Francisco. We merged them together. We totally pivoted their business models away from what they were doing and really became the architecture for both our marketing cloud and our data cloud. It took us 2.5 years with 400 engineers working full-time all day, most of them all night. And we were then able to roll out the Zeta marketing platform and the Zeta data cloud in 2021, which was the first and still only marketing cloud that has AI as native to the application layer. It's not a step out of the platform.
I love it. And it's all about don't get in love with your product, right? Because you need to pivot when necessary. And it seems that it worked out.
Thus far, it's working. But the funny thing is, they call it the innovator's dilemma, right? We could have sat there and kept doing what we were doing, but it's one of the things that I've always really prided Zeta on. We pivot the business all the time. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but we're pivoting again massively, probably the biggest pivot we've made as a company since 2017 with Athena, which is our new voice-enabled conversational super agent, which is a massive pivot, moving away from a keyboard and moving away from platform navigation to conversational management of outcomes. And it's just an incredibly differentiated viewpoint into how to operate a platform. Hopefully, clients will adopt it. We're actually seeing much faster adoption than I think we originally expected. But what I would say is that decision in 2017, we were too early. See, we were sitting there talking about AI-driven marketing, and people were like, "Huh? What?"
Oh, what is
Nobody
AI?
cared.
What is this tool?
Right. When we went public in June of 2021, which, by the way, our 5-year public anniversary is June 2026, which literally we put you put a huge banner on the side of the New York Stock Exchange. Our banner said data plus AI equals intent. Yossi, everybody was asking me, who's Al and why is he in charge of your data policy? Nobody had any idea what we were talking about. The good news was we had kept most of our existing clients on the older platforms. And once we rolled out the new platform, we were able to sunset the old platform completely and move those clients over. And then we became very profitable very quickly because the new platform requires 10% of the people to manage as the old platforms did. Literally a 90% reduction in labor. So you were able to move all those clients over, you got scale, you got very profitable. We then went public. Really, what supercharged our business. 2026 will be our 4th consecutive year of greater than 30% average compounded growth, 4 years in a row, greater than 50% 4-year compounded EBITDA growth, and 4-year greater than 50%, meaningfully greater free cash flow compounded growth. When we look back 10, 15, 20 years from now, I think the seminal moment in AI was when ChatGPT launched. And, it was the day after Thanksgiving. Everybody was like, what? Is this real? And we were just all like blown away. But it was the day that AI moved from science fiction to boardroom conversation. And every board member went to every CEO and said, what's our AI strategy? And every CEO went to every CTO, CIO, and CMO and said, what's our AI strategy?
Just like asking the next person. So
Yes, exactly. And literally we'd been pitching all of these guys for years, and all of a sudden the phones didn't stop ringing. And that's when our business really exploded.
that's phenomenal. And I guess now with partnerships like the one that you have with OpenAI powering the conversational tool that you mentioned,
Yes.
Athena. So how does actually marketing change when, let's say, a CMO say, I want to acquire 2 million customers at a 7% slower cost, and AI just execute that strategy? I mean, what happens to marketing teams in today's world, in this current environment?
First of all, I love that you've read my stuff because that's my exact example. So I love it. Very good work, Yossi. But what I would say is organizations that manage large numbers of individuals who run marketing are going to have to figure out how to repurpose those individuals for other functions in the company. If you go back to the Gutenberg printing press, we'll go back far. I don't go back as far as fire, but let's go back to the Gutenberg printing press, which much to my kids' disbelief, I was not alive when it was created. But then you go to the telegraph, the telephone, the computer, the internet, the mobile ecosystem, and then, of course, cloud to get to AI, right? It's sort of the huge technological leaps. In every single case, these technologies created more jobs than they destroyed. But in every case, they created massively different jobs than the jobs that existed before then. So, organizations that run large marketing groups, we're seeing already our clients who are adopting Athena are showing an 80% reduction in work hours to manage the platform. On top of the fact, it's driving substantially higher than our normal 600% return on marketing spend. Athena is showing much higher than that already. Those people are going to have to learn new skills. And my thoughts are most organizations are not going to shed most of their employees. I think there's a lot of intellectual capital that's built up in these people, and I think they're going to find other roles for them.
I agree, because if you look at, let's say, 100 years ago, right? So farming was something like 80, maybe 95% of basically all of the profession out there. And I guess no one even imagined that it's going to change. And now it's only like 2%.
I know it's sub 5, right? And by the
Yeah.
way, they create 1,000 times more food. So if you look at evolution, we started as nomads, then we became agrarian. Then in the late 1870s in Great Britain, we started the Industrial Revolution. We then headed into the 1950s, where in the United States, we really created what I call the information technology boom. And as my friend Dan Ives says, we're going into the fourth industrial revolution with AI. And I do believe those people will be moved into other jobs. The other thing nobody talks about, I don't want to get too philosophical, but 5 years ago, all I heard at every conference, every economic forum, white papers was the world has such an aging population, we're not going to have enough people to do any of the jobs. So, you've got an aging population, you've got AI. Ultimately, you're going to have robotics meets AI, and that's going to be a real game changer in the way work functions. As it relates to Athena, just to be more tactical, because my comms people hate when I go off on a philosophical rant, we're seeing the highest return on investment for any product we've ever rolled out, while simultaneously lowering work hours by 80+% for clients who are adopting it. So we're going to come up with more sort of fine-tuned metrics to be reporting Athena over the coming quarters. But right now, the early results are very, very positive.
Absolutely. And you mentioned also that Zeta has been known for all the M&A, right? So there is one thing to actually grow organically, but at the end, you got to acquire some company, as you've done very much successfully with even different integration at the early beginning up until Marigold, the pretty recent one. But I was curious, easier said than done, as I mentioned, because there is one thing to acquire a company, there is another thing to actually integrate it, the PMI, the post-merger integration. So how do you evaluate when you want to acquire a company? Let's even not take a specific one. Are you looking for more the founders themselves of the companies, the people that run it?
I mean, human capital is very, very important to us. It's something we really focus on. In fact, if you look at our top 20 global employees, I think 12 to 14 of them came in through M&A. So let me be clear. Great integration starts before you even consider buying a company. And we look at 100 different companies seriously to buy one. We have an internal team that does nothing but focus on M&A, because I've always said if you pull operational people out of their day-to-day to do M&A, they're going to screw up both jobs. So we sort of have a team that does nothing but as soon as we get excited about a deal, that's when we bring in the operating guys. And if the operating guys don't believe we can fully integrate them into our tech stack within 12 months, we don't even do the deal. So we have 5 pillars of M&A, and we live by them. 1, we have to believe we can fully integrate the deal into our tech stack within 12 months. 2, their customers have to want to buy our products or vice versa. 3, they have to have an incredible technology or data set that we don't already have. 4, they have to have incredible people that we believe will drive the business. And 5, they have to have an entrepreneurial or sort of the mindset from a cultural perspective that we want to maintain. And once again, We've seen companies we love that are 4 of the 5, and we don't do them. We're just very, very disciplined. As I joke, we're 19 years old. We've done 19 deals in 19 years. It's highly probable we'll do a 20th. But if you look at the first quarter of 2026, we still grew the business just a tad under 30% organically. We grew the business just over a tad, 20% inorganically, which was, by the way, well above where we or anybody else expected the Marigold deal to be. I think the street collectively had us at 37% growth. We came in at just over 50% total growth. That's because tremendous amounts of work are done in the due diligence period around the 5 pillars before we do a deal.
I would say indeed that it's all about the human capital, because at the end it's a human game. It's like you don't just acquire a company, you acquire the whole human capital of it that they need to actually deliver afterwards. And okay, another different, very interesting theme is the customer acquisition, because when you say customer acquisition, it's sort of like people acquisition, right? Because you want the people to acquire your whatever product it's gonna be, right? But now people talk also about agents. So I was curious, do you think it's gonna be also sort of like agent-driven acquisition?
Oh, for sure. I mean, to be clear, Zeta is already meaningfully engaged in generative engine optimization today. Like, we plug into the APIs of most of these platforms, including, of course, OpenAI. And that's where agents are really going to do their discovery. We believe it's going to start with GEO, but also I believe that ultimately there'll be 2 layers to the internet. There'll be a publisher layer that we see with our eyes and we can navigate as humans. And then below it will be an agent layer where our agents will communicate with our enterprise clients' agents. We're helping to build that layer already by helping our clients. We're already on the 4th iteration of our AI agent studio for our clients. So we're helping our clients to build those agents. At the same time, your agent's just not going to wake up and say, "Oh, let's go to that enterprise," right?
Probably not.
Right. So I think a lot of the discovery is going to start in GEO, and that's why I think GEO is going to be foundational to what I'm calling agentic e-commerce. Now, listen, my wife is not going to use her agent to go buy a purse or a dress. She's just not. She's going to want that layer of the internet that she can go look at. And if it's expensive enough, she's going to want to go into a store. I, on the other hand, wear nothing but black polo shirts. So my life is super easy. But the flip side is, if you're buying an airline ticket, or you're buying or renting a car or getting a hotel room, that could very quickly go agent to agent. And I think you're going to see individual agents on behalf of consumers that will start the process with GEO and then make the decision on which platform to interact with on an agent to agent basis.
Depends what you want to buy, I guess. And okay, so we talk about AI, and when you talk about AI, there is all the proprietary data that people are anxious with. Different foundational models will use AI or not use my AI, but that a key differentiator is the proprietary data cloud for, I think, something like over 535 million opt-in individuals.
555 million, Yossi. Don't beat me out of that last 20 million global individuals. Listen, I sort of joke, the only other companies that have the same level of data that we have are all worth over $1 trillion. You could look at Meta, Amazon, Apple, obviously Google. The reality is that it's even more of a moat than just controlling the first party data. And to be clear, we have never fed our first party data cloud data into any large language model, and we never will. But what we're really doing is, with our enterprise clients, we're building a consumer data platform, and we're taking 100% of our enterprise clients' data into that CDP. We're merging it with our data. We remove the personally identifiable information to protect the consumer. And that data is used to train our algorithms only on what the best attributes are to focus from an acquisition perspective, or who are the clients of theirs who are most likely to churn. All of that lives in there. So When you think about a moat around Zeta's business, not only do we have our first-party data, but 51% of the Fortune 100 largest companies in the United States are giving us their data. 24% of the Fortune 500. And then, hundreds and hundreds of clients are trusting us with their first-party proprietary data. They're not going to feed that data into large language models. As Alex Karp said yesterday at their meeting, enterprises are going to large language models and getting very, very frustrated because they're not prepared to share their first-party data. And, the large language model platforms have built incredible software, incredible technology, but it's not easily implemented into an enterprise. One of the beauties of Zeta is today, if an enterprise adopts our platform, our AI will return them an average of 600+% for every dollar they spend through our platform in business. And we're trying to get that to 1,000% return on marketing spend. That's all AI adoption in our cloud in real time, using their data and our data to train proprietary models. If you think about sort of the future, you've got large language models, they're going to be huge winners. But the vast majority of the work is going to be done in what's called inference-based AI. All Zeta has done since 2017 is focus on inference-based AI, meaning we don't need to adapt, sort of ingest the entire internet, even though we ingest most of it, but you don't need to make a decision on, is somebody going to get a particular credit card and be credit approved? We're looking at just the data sets that are mission critical to that. That might be hundreds or sometimes even 1,000 data elements, but it's not trillions of data points for that one decision. And that's inference-based AI. It's very agentic focused and it's very task-based. That's what enterprises need. And that's not what large language models are delivering today.
So there is the AI training data for one side of the equation, but there is also now all the open source models, right? Many people talk about open source, open AI, closed AI, etc. And we indeed just hosted today the CEO of ChainGuard about security and open source AI. But I was curious to see, where do you see Zeta positioning itself in this sort of like dynamic between the open data ecosystem and walled gardens like Google
We're
and Meta?
very closed. So to be clear, we don't share our clients' data or our data outside of our ecosystem ever. To be clear, we don't even have data exhaust to the large language model. So we're very close. Now, that being said, I don't know another platform other than Zeta that fully integrates into OpenAI, Meta, Google, the entire open web, connected TV, messaging, and so on and so forth. We connected to all of that. Whereas most of our competitors, by way of example, can't target into Mega. They can't work with OpenAI. They might not get along with Google, so they don't work together. We also work with Amazon. We want to be sort of focused on any methodology to get our enterprise clients to the customers who want their products in the most efficient way. And we made the decision to be Switzerland as it relates to activation. As it relates to internal, we're a very closed architecture and spend a lot of time, energy, and money keeping it safe and private.
So we mentioned at the beginning all the Tokenmaxxing, right?
Yes.
Now people say that maybe the token price might continue to fall, and then it will be much easier to develop new AI tools. But what do you think, actually? The token price will continue to fall significantly over time? How does this reshape maybe Zeta business model and margins? Because people are so anxious. We want to develop AI, but it costs a lot of money with all the tokens.
Well, we've been doing it for a long time, so it actually does not cost us a lot of money. What we're seeing is, because we started super early and because AI is native to our application layer, our token utilization is de minimis because we have developed all of our own models. We literally use our own models to manage the entire Zeta marketing platform. Now, of course, we partner with OpenAI for Athena. And we sort of have an all-you-can-eat relationship with them on that. So that's fully baked in. And then as it relates to development, we look at pulling from the LLMs that have the best return on investment for quality and utilization of tokens. That being said, I have never seen a technology in my lifetime, and I'll remind you, Yossi, I am old, that hasn't dropped significantly in price from when it came out in the years that followed it. The only caveat in history might be Apple products, only because they control the market and they sunset everything so quickly. But if you even look at Apple, the phone that you'll pay $1,000 for today is 1,000 times more powerful than the phone you paid $1,000 for in 2007. You're still paying $1,000, but you're getting 1,000 times more capacity. I don't know if it's exactly 1,000 more or less. My point is, it's a lot more powerful. And it's going to be the same thing in AI. I don't think you're going to see a very quick, massive drop, but I think you'll see token bundling. I think you'll see better value out of using it. Like, we primarily use OpenAI because of our relationship and only roll to the others when necessary. But the reality is that I do think it'll come down in cost. How long it takes, I'm not sure.
You mentioned also Apple. So I guess for those in the audience that don't know, so one of your co-founders is John Sculley. That
Well,
was
not
the
one
CEO.
of my only other. There's only two of
Yeah.
us. There's not 10 of
Yeah,
us.
so yeah. I meant like your other co-founder is John Sculley, the previous CEO of one of the previous CEO of Apple.
I think he's one of four ever, maybe five. But yeah,
Yeah,
John was CEO for 10 or 12 years of Apple, and before that, he was the president of Pepsi.
that's remarkable. I remember even watching the movie Job, so it was interesting to see.
I don't know if that's the one that Jeff Bridges plays, John.
I think
But
this is the one.
yeah, but John tells a great. First of all, John's also one of my closest friends and one of the world's most special individuals. John tells a great story about when he was on set. He got to meet him and how great he was, and it was fun. No, John has been my co-founder through 3 companies now. We've been partners for, gosh, I'd say 27, 28 years.
Wow.
And he's been an invaluable resource for me. He's now, in his mid 80s and sort of rightfully taking it, I would say easy. He's actually working on startups, but he's really, I still speak to him 2 or 3 times a week.
And it's interesting because this duo of the two of you, so sort of like hardware guy and software guy, just like taking together and you get Zeta in a way, right?
No joke. As recently as last week, Yossi, John and I were working on a strategy document and we were going back and forth and we were in a joint implementation of one of the large language models and building it and sort of iterating it back and forth. And literally that was last Sunday. We spent, I think, much to his wife, Diane, and my wife, Kristen's dismay, we spent a huge chunk of the day going back and forth with each other on these strategy documents.
That's one way to do it. And okay, so one last question actually before we go into the, let's say, the rapid fire question. So what do you think actually is the biggest misconceptions of investors or maybe even founders about AI, data, maybe even personalization?
I think everybody, for better or worse, thinks large language models are going to disintermediate the vast majority of software. And it's just not true. If you look back to the dot-com world when it was first happening, everybody said the internet was going to kill Walmart. The internet was going to kill JP Morgan Chase. And then those guys adapted and adopted to the internet and they became juggernauts like they never had been before. They were already big, right? It's going to be the exact same thing with AI. They're going to be 2 different types of companies. They're going to be companies that adapt and adopt to AI, and they're going to be companies that no longer exist. It's going to be one or the other. But software companies like Zeta, which control a massive data layer, and our big value is we're providing effectively the intellectual infrastructure to decision-making for our clients. And we're really becoming the operating system of our clients' marketing sort of businesses. That move is more deeply embedding us. Here's a perfect example. Last year, Yossi, Zeta's net retention rate was 120%. In a world where if you get to 100%, you're a rock star, we were at 120. That's because we're getting deeper from an embedded perspective as we're moving more and more into the operating system and the intellectual capabilities, call it the intelligence layer, inside our clients versus where we were 7, 8 years ago, we were just a marketing partner. And companies like us that are taking data plus AI infrastructure and creating intelligence, we just finished our 4th quarter in a row of accelerated growth at scale. And, companies that don't have data and companies that are not able to create intelligence, I think they're going to have meaningful challenges. They're going to have to pivot their businesses in the years to come.
100%. And I guess that the two main parallel between the dot-com era to the AI is that data is important in both cases. And if you take data, back then it was just like, the data as a whole. Now is the data sort of like as a source for intent to just the AI model?
And Yossi, the way I describe it is data is the true electricity that fuels AI.
Absolutely. And okay, advice for builders. What would you advise someone that now build his or her company today? Is it like the go-to market is the most important thing?
No,
Time to market or
Nope. The most important thing any new company does is solve a problem. And if you're not solving a problem for clients, you're not going to win. And I talk to young entrepreneurs, I talk to older entrepreneurs, and I'm always asked the same question, and I always give the same answer. Solve a major problem, and you will win as a business.
So solve a major problem, and also back to your previous line at the beginning, don't get in love with your problem as well.
Once again, it's not about what you're building. It's about the problem you're solving.
Yeah.
The problem we were trying to solve was marketing was inefficient and couldn't create high quality return on investment. We thought we were solving it by buying a bunch of CRM assets and putting them together with our customer acquisition engine. And we figured out that we were wrong because we couldn't synthesize the data fast enough to create the type of return on investment we wanted. And that's when we realized that this new technology, AI, could help us get to the return on investment we wanted because it could synthesize the amount of data necessary to make a decision in a millisecond versus 2 weeks.
That's right. And I know also that you like to read indeed. What topics or idea you most focus on learning, let's say in the last week or month in your pastime?
I do read 5 to 7 hours a day. I consume a lot of information. I have been building out a website for something I'm super interested in on Redlit. I've been using WhisperFlow integrated to Redlit because I'm dyslexic, and I've been using that as my tool. And by the way, anybody who's not using WhisperFlow is crazy. It is maybe the best new application I've plugged in. And I've been building it out, and I've been simultaneously using all three, really, OpenAI, Gemini, and Claude to build the knowledge base I need for the website I'm building to put live with a project I've been working on under not my name, but it's something that's a research project that I'm super interested in. I do this when I'm not sleeping. I still work 100 hours a week on Zeta. But I will tell you, programming your own website, mapping it to a registered URL is actually more complicated than you would think it is. But with Redlit, I've been really enjoying that. So that's the skill I've been working on. I'm also trying to learn how to play the piano very poorly. I have an app on my phone and I'm not musical, but I'm trying.
I mean, you got to try at least. Mentorship. Who has been your most influential mentor, or maybe one piece of advice that you wish to share with the audience?
So, like a lot of people in my position, my mentors have changed over the years. Growing up, my mentors were my stepfather and my grandfather. I then was very, very blessed to get to know John Sculley young. I was probably 22 24, 25 when I met John. And then when I turned 30, I became very close to a gentleman named Michael Milken. And Michael, who runs the Milken Institute and is sort of a legend in his own right, has been my true mentor for the last, Sculley and Milken have been my mentors for the last 30 years. I think they both lovingly say I teach them now as much as they teach me. I'm not sure it's true. As it relates to menteeing, I mentee a lot of people inside of Zeta. The challenge is I get approached by many to mentor. I have 5 kids. Now, they don't all want my mentoring. The funny thing is the quickest way to get some of my kids to do something is I tell them the opposite. But, the truth is that I'm very close to my kids and we try to, I try to work with them on their projects and what they're involved in.
Life outside of work. So maybe hobbies outside of reading, or maybe something that you really like to do could be cycling or something else.
Tennis. So I play tennis 3 times a week. I played, well, lately it's been more 1 or 2, but I played tennis in college and I've played tennis my whole life. If given free time, I would play 4 or 5 times a week. I tend to play 3 times a week in the summer. And then the rest of the year, depends on where I am, I try to play twice because I get so bored in a gym, Yossi.
Yeah. Me
And
as
yet,
well. I don't like it. I like to just be outside and run. Or
right,
like,
I'd rather be outside on a pretty day. I generally play with the pro who can really hit with me, and we have a lot of fun. And, it keeps my mind clear. The good news is I only sleep 5 or 6 hours a night. So between that and the reading, I have a trainer come over 3 days a week and I try to play tennis twice a week. And then, my wife, I have 3 older kids who I see when I get to see them. And then I have 2 young kids who I see pretty much every day, which is fun.
any favorite tennis player, actually? If you follow, I know that now there is the French Open, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken, the Roland Garros.
the problem is I have no time to watch sports. Right
Yeah.
now, the only thing I am making time for is to watch the Knicks, not to agitate anybody, listening.
Hey, man,
But
NBA Finals 1-0, I think, already.
well, let's not get too excited. I mean, Wembley might be he might turn out to be one of the greatest basketball players. And watching him play basketball is just he's unbelievable. I'm sort of hoping the Knicks can win this one because I think he's going to win like 10. And I'm 56 years old. I think I was 3 or 4 when the Knicks last won. So my theory is we're due. But
The-
I don't watch TV. I don't watch a lot of sports. When I'm not working, and I tend to work 80 to 100 hours a week, I'm either playing tennis, working out, or reading or hanging out with my wife and kids.
That's awesome, honestly. And I remember actually, I think I went to one of his first games in the league against the Knicks. I think it was in his rookie years, and all of the crowd just like chanted something like overrated, overrated. And well, I guess he's not anymore overrated,
He's
right? Because,
he's and listen, you'd be hard pressed to find a sports franchise that's better run than San Antonio.
yeah.
Like, they really developed him. They didn't rush him. But then again, they've had David Robinson. They've had Tim Duncan, right? They've had some of the greatest big men in history that also everybody who's played for their team, from my vantage point, I'm no expert. They're a very classy organization. The players carry themselves well. I mean, that being said, who knows? But I am right now rooting for the Knicks and hoping that we can pull this one out.
Yeah. And I guess also just having the same coach for over a decade, or like 2 decades, Greg Popovich back
Popovich,
then.
and he's still showing up to games, even though
Yeah.
his health is not great. And it's been, once again, you got to give it to Dolan, you got to give it to the Knicks. They've finally put together a team that can make a run. But it's sort of interesting to see the 2 franchises come up against each other.
And okay, so if you could have a dinner or just like grab a coffee with anyone, who would it be?
I mean, I could give you a few names because I can't say just one. I would start by saying Albert Einstein certainly would be very, very interesting to me. And without question, my stepfather. If he passed away a few years ago, and he would be in my top choices to have another dinner with him.
That's really lovely. And okay, last questions now. And this is the hardest one of them all. Your favorite movie of all time?
Interstellar.
Interstellar. Chris Nolan is genius indeed. So I
A
love
genius. I mean,
it. Yeah.
I love every Chris Nolan movie. Like most guys my age, I love the Godfather series. I love Star Wars. I love the Shawshank Redemption. But when people ask me what is my absolute favorite movie, I always default to Interstellar. My wife and I have this theory that the movies you love, if you watch them, and I watch them more than this, but if you really watch them, if you watched one every 5 years, so you waited 5 years to watch it and then watched it again in another 5 years, you would see an entirely different movie from your then vantage point in life. And for me, with Interstellar, I started out watching it really worried about the future of the earth, which is a big component of it that people don't like to think about. And then today, I really put myself into the father figure leaving his children. And then when he sees his daughter again at the end, that's just such a
Yeah, no.
beautiful.
Don't make him leave Merph, as they said in
Right.
the movie. And I can tell
Right.
you actually the same thing happened to me with Inception. I watched it once and then I watched it after 5 years or maybe a couple of years, and I understood another layer of the dream even more.
So was he in the real world or back in the dream world when
I
the
think
totem starts going like that?
I think I saw like a couple of interview with, I don't remember his name, but like the
No,
old actor.
it was with Sir. It was the older guy who's in
Yeah,
every one of the movies. Michael
yeah,
Caine. It was Michael
Michael
Caine.
Caine, exactly. So I think he said that this is actually the real world.
What he said was any scene I'm in personally was the real world.
Okay,
That's what
was
Michael
it?
Caine said.
Yeah,
Michael Caine said that the way the movie was crafted was that any scene that Michael Caine could be seen in was the real world. And in the scene in the end where his children run to
was he there
him,
or no?
he was.
There you go. So it's a real one. So
He's the one who lets him into the house, and then you go and see the kids and the kids run. I always thought he was in the real world because the totem starts like moving. It's not
yeah,
in the fake world or in Inception, the totem never stops.
that's right. So food for thought for the audience. And okay, so David, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been a joy and fun conversation. I like the last part about the movies and just like the Knicks. So there you go. And
The truth of the matter is this was really fun. It must be 2 a.m. where you are right now. So you're
12,
particularly
12 a.m.
12 a.m. So it's you're particularly energetic. I'm very, very happy to spend time with you, Yossi. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me.
the pleasure is all mine. So, and for everybody else in the audience, so stay tuned. We have other very interesting episodes to show you. We just hosted earlier today the CEO of ChainGuard. We hosted also the CTO of Texas Instruments. So it's going to be a few interesting weeks ahead. And yeah, stay tuned.